I would like to start by showing you that the risk of equity is amplified as the firm adds debt. I will do this using a numerical example. Consider a firm with free cash flows that are risky. There are two states of the economy. In booms, the free cash flows of the firm are 10 million, and during recessions, the free cash flows are 5 million. Recall that free cash flows are the cash flows generated by the firm after all investments are paid, and hence these cash flows are available to be paid out to equity and debt holders. We will assume that the firm pays these cash flows out. We will consider two possible capital structures for this firm. As an aside, the term capital structure refers to the way in which a firm is financed. For example, a firm can be financed 100% with equity, that is no debt, or it can be financed 50% with equity and 50% with debt, or any other combination of the two. One of the capital structures we will consider is all equity. Imagine that the original owner of the firm sells 50% of the equity to a new investor and keeps the other 50%. The other capital structure is one with some debt in it. The original owner borrows instead of selling equity. Suppose that the debt payments due every period are 4 million. Let's imagine that in the next 4 years, the economy is booming in years 1 and 3 and in recession in years 2 and 4. The table shows the free cash flows of the firm in each of these years. Now, for the firm that is all equity finance, we can calculate the payments for each of the two shareholders. Since each owns 50% of the firm and there is no debt, each one receives 50% of the free cash flows. That is 5 million in booms and 2.5 million in recessions. Let's now turn to the firm with debt in its capital structure. The firm owes $4 million every period. Creditors, or also called debt holders, must be paid before any money can be paid to equity holder. For that reason, the firm pays $4 million to creditors no matter how much free cash flows it generates. What is left goes to equity holders. That is, equity holders get 6 million in booms, the 10 million of total free cash flows generated minus the 4 million paid to the creditors, and only 1 million in recessions, the 5 million in total free cash flows generated minus the 4 million paid to creditors. To see this more clearly, I am also including a graph with the payments to all capital providers under the two capital structures. Focus on the firm with no debt. Equity holders get 2.5 million in recessions and 5 million in booms. That is, they get 2 times the cash flows in booms. Now, look at the cash flows equity holders receive when the firm has debt. They receive 1 million in recessions and 6 million in booms. That is, they receive 6 times the cash flows in booms than they do in recessions. Clearly, equity is riskier when the firm has debt in it. This example should convince you that the introduction of debt in the capital structure increases the risk of equity. Actually, the more debt the firm has, the riskier its equity. Try, for example, to replicate this example with debt that requires a payment of 4.5 million every period. You should get that the equity holders receive 11 times in booms what they get in recessions, a much riskier capital structure. One more comment before we move on. There are two ways in which the riskiness of equity can increase. It could be that the free cash flows become riskier. For instance, in our numerical example, it could be that the free cash flows in booms are 12 million and in recessions only 4.5 million. Alternatively, As we have just seen in the numerical example, the firm can add more debt, making its equity riskier. In other words, there are two different sources of risk in a firm's equity. We will be referring to them as business risk and financial risk. Business risk is the risk of the free cash flows. It is called business risk because this risk relates to the operating activities of the firm. For example, any shock to revenues or costs will affect the free cash flows. These are business risks. The financial risk depends on the level of debt the firm has. The higher the level of debt, the higher the financial risk.